Bracketology Bliss for you as we look at the Florida Gators and we look at the Florida State Seminoles as we head into conference play here. What should we expect? What should we think is going to happen? What's going to be delivered here over the course of the next week as we head into Selection Sunday, which is what now, a whopping 5 days away for the Florida Gators and for the Florida State Seminoles. Well, here, look, this is how I look at this. At this point in time, right now the Gators are probably an 8 and 9 seed, aren't they? 8 or 9 seed. They get bounced early here in the tournament. They're going to be a 10, maybe even 11. They're going to be in the tournament, though. What about Florida State? Currently sitting there as a 2 seed. If the stars align for Leonard Hamilton and company, I could see them being a 1 seed. Absolutely, I could see them being a 1 seed. Well, how do you get to that 1 seed status? Well, you've got Dayton, who's currently locked into a 1 seed, right? Or locked in, but projected to be a 1 seed. No matter what happens, Kansas is a 1. Not up for debate. It's not. Kansas is a 1 no matter what. So after Kansas, what should we expect? Great question. The way I look at it right now, Kansas, done. Baylor, pretty much, I don't want to say a lock. They've had such a great year. I know they've stumbled the last week. If Baylor gets dumped early on, then maybe Florida State could work their way in there. Florida, regardless of what happens, I don't see Florida State, I don't see Florida being higher than a 7. Even if they would go on to win the SEC tournament and dump Kentucky, you go through and look at all the projections and the RPIs and the strength of schedules and the BPIs, or however you want to look at it. The fact of the matter remains, and again, there's so many numbers out here now when it comes to the tournament. It used to be, hey, you're in a major conference, you win your tournament, you have 6 or less losses. Chances are you're going to be a 1 or a 2 seed. That's not the case anymore. And when you've got small schools or mid-major schools like the Daytons, like the San Diego States, like the Gonzagas, when it's all said and done, you look at the top 8 seeds in the country, San Diego State, Dayton, Gonzaga, probably going to be 3 of the top 8 seeds. Then you have what? Kansas, Baylor. Now you're to 4 and 5. How do you lay it out from there? Well, good question, right? Florida State's going to be involved with that. Kentucky is going to be involved with that. By the way, when it comes to this and how we're doing it, and shame on me for not saying this, feel free to drop any lines on Facebook or Twitter that you would like me to answer when it comes to Florida State as we do a little Bracketology Bliss here with you on this Tuesday. Again, Seth Harp on Sports. You are watching and consuming the bar. I thought we'd do it tonight just for the simple fact that the players taking place in Jacksonville, or I should say Ponte Vedra Beach, the big concert was this evening, and wanted to let everybody get back from the concert rather than do it early on in the afternoon when everybody was heading out to the concert or doing it while you were at the concert. Military Appreciation Night. So everybody that's made their way back here, that's why we changed it up on you here a little bit and did it here this evening. Again, when it comes to Florida and where Florida is and where Florida and Florida State are, we go to Jerry Palm when it comes to bracketology. I just trust Jerry. Jerry does a great job, and so does Joe Lunardi with ESPN. They both do a good job. I've just been working with Jerry forever. Maybe it's because he went to Purdue or has a son that goes to Purdue. My mom is a graduate of Purdue. Yeah. Family ties run thick. But no, there's no real rhyme, no reason why you choose one or the other. I just like Jerry and what Jerry does. I look at it like this, okay? When it comes to at least, let's see how I want to word this right. When it comes to Florida State becoming a 1 seed and Florida State getting to that 1 seed line, there are ways that this can take place. Again, I look at what Jerry has right now. He's got Dayton as a 1, Kansas is a 1, Baylor is a 1, Gonzaga is a 1. Gonzaga's in, right? Gonzaga's in. Gonzaga's going to be a 1. Kansas is going to be a 1. So what do you need? You need Baylor to lose before they get to the Big 12 title game. If Baylor can get dumped before they get to the Big 12 title game, then you have a fantastic shot. If you're Florida State and you can win the ACC, and look, not only win the ACC, but take down one of the blue bloods in the process. If you can knock off a Duke in the ACC championship game, or knock off a Duke and then plow through a Virginia, something along those lines, in your Florida State, you bet you can be a 1 seed if Baylor gets dumped. Florida State becoming a 1 seed is all contingent on Baylor losing, and Baylor losing before they make the finals. Baylor gets to the finals and they get dumped by Kansas, Baylor's going to end up on a backdoor 1 line. They are. They're going to end up on a backdoor 1 line or in the strong 2 range is where they're going to end up. Ken, Where are you? I'm in my bar, man. My bar in my house. Yeah. People have asked me, how long have you had this thing? I've had this thing for years. I just never broadcast from it. Why did I broadcast? I broadcast from the studio. I can broadcast from here now, whether it's Twitter or whether it's Facebook. So, yeah, that's where we are. You want a beer? Got all sorts of good stuff in here if anybody wants to stop by. Again, that's just looking at it from Florida State's standpoint. Now, when it comes to Kentucky and Florida State getting into that one line, right now, your one seeds are Baylor, Gonzaga, right? Baylor, Gonzaga, Kansas, and Dayton. When it comes to the two seeds right now, Creighton, I forgot about Creighton, shame on me. Creighton, Villanova, Florida State, and San Diego State. Okay, and then you fall down the next line when you're talking about the Kentuckys of the world, right? And you look at the three seeds that are out there floating around right now. Maryland, Seton Hall. Boy, the Big Ten is loaded. They just don't have very much there in the top 10, right? Michigan State and Duke. Kentucky is a 4. So Kentucky's chances of getting up to that one line, slim to none. Slim to none. And if Florida State, it doesn't even have to be convincing. As long as Florida State is able to get through. Hey, there, my phone's ringing, by the way. That is the Indiana Jones theme. If Florida State can somehow win the ACC and Baylor gets dumped, and then you look around, the Daytons of the world, I don't know what it means. If Dayton loses early, I don't know if Dayton gets beat, then that slides Florida State into maybe one of those one seeds. I'm not sure. I'm not. I do know this, at least in terms of the structure of this going forward. You're not going to be able to compete with Kansas. You're not going to be able to compete with Gonzaga. So then the line falls to the Daytons of the world. Then the line falls down the line to everybody else. It does. I wonder. Oh, boy. Again, it all hinges on Baylor. Florida State all on Baylor. And the question is, once they do make the NCAA tournament, if Florida State is a 2 seed, where should they be in that 2 seed line? Where should they fall in that 2 seed line? Well, look. Gonzaga, if Florida State ends up as a 2 seed in Kansas and Gonzaga's region, that's just wrong. It is. It's just flat out wrong. If they end up in either of those quadrants. If they end up in Dayton's region as a 2 seed, there's not really much of a difference, is there, between, Dayton and 1 and Florida State as a 2. Yeah, you may end up getting, taking on the 7th ranked team in the second round of the tournament as opposed to, or 7 seed in the second round of the tournament as opposed to an 8 or a 9, but that's just it. Now, at least from Florida State's perspective and where they are with Leonard Hamilton, the question then, surfaces, what happens? Where do you go? Where do you go if you are Florida State in terms of a mindset? Where do you go as this successful season? Well, what's a successful year? What's a successful year for Leonard Hamilton and Florida State when it comes to the NCAA tournament? Well, as a 2 seed or a 1 seed, it's the Elite 8. It is. It's the Elite 8 as a 1 or a 2. If you're a 3 or a 4, all right, fine. Where Florida's sitting this year, if Mike White and company can make it to the tournament and win a game, it's not where you thought you would be at the beginning of the year. It's not. But getting to the Sweet 16, if you're Florida, that's success. It is. That's success. If you're Florida State, where is it? Look, if you're Florida State, it's Elite 8, or you're going to look back on the season and say, oh, what might have been, what could have been. Now, what's interesting at the beginning of the year, the rules were reversed, right? If Florida State just gets to the tournament and wins a game, then, okay, kind of where you are with the Gators, right? If you are, Florida at the beginning of the year, you just get there and you win a game. It's amazing how these rules are reversed. But Leonard Hamilton has a great opportunity in front of him. He does. Leonard Hamilton has a great opportunity in front of him to do some things that are pretty special and pretty unique. If you're Florida State and you make the tournament, you make it to the Elite 8. If you're Florida State and you make it to the Final Four, then at that point, that's that crowning achievement for Leonard Hamilton, right? It is. And different sports judge things differently in terms of levels of success. Basketball, it's the Final Four. It is. Basketball, it's the Final Four. Other sports, college football playoff, yeah, making it to the championship game and lose, but college football, it's a college football playoff now. It used to be major bowl wins. And to some extent, it still can be major bowl wins. It can. But I look at it just as I look at almost anything else in sports. What's your definition of success? What basketball, it's the Final Four. What's it in football? Conference championship game? I think you could say that the Tennessee Titans had a successful year going to the conference championship game, wouldn't you say? I mean, I would. That was a pretty successful season. I did. Packers, yeah, they laid an egg. They got beat up pretty good. But to make it to the NFC Championship game, how many teams in the NFL right now, if I said you're going to make it to the Conference Championship game, would say it's a successful year? Probably about only 3 or 4 wouldn't. Only 3 or 4 wouldn't. So fours, quads is how we determine success. Florida State makes it to the Final Four. That's a successful year. They make it to the Elite Eight and get beat. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's probably it's a good year. Then at that point, you get beat. If Florida State and you're a 1 seed or a 2 seed and you get dumped in the Sweet 16, I don't know if it can be a successful year. I really don't. Now, some may argue with that. Some may say differ. But these two programs, it's amazing at the beginning of the year. Florida State, Florida, both making the Sweet 16 and get beat right away. You'd be like, up, it's a good year. It's a good year. That's not the case anymore. Expectations have risen a little bit. They have. They've risen a little bit. So at least from that standpoint, where you are with Florida State and the 1 seed and the 2 seed, what do I think? I think if Florida State, again, I'm going to reiterate this. I'm going to circle back to this. If Florida State, somehow, some way, if Florida State is able to win the ACC tournament, dump a Duke in the process, dump Virginia in the process, win the ACC tournament, and Baylor loses before the Big 12 title game, I think Florida State is going to be knocking on the door saying, hey, 1 seed here, and I think it will be fair. You just look at the strength of schedule and you look at what they've been able to do this year, and I think it's legit. I do. Okay. What else do we have in the hopper here? When it comes to the Florida Gators and Mike White and company and where they go. Geez, you got some mean things in there, man. Great to see you back. Okay, there we go. I mean, good gracious, gang. All sorts of fun stuff as people are in and out here. Even though this is not regulated by the FCC, I'm going to try to keep it somewhat clean. I am. Try to keep it somewhat clean. Florida. Where Florida is at this point. They're right there in that 8 or 9 threshold. And with the Gators and, the way it works for Mike White at this point, where they finished, the fact that they were very competitive with Baylor, the fact that they had Kentucky beat and blew it, those things matter in terms of an eyeball test. They do. Top 50 wins, top, quad 1 wins, quad 2 wins, all of those things, when it comes to where Mike White is, they're going to push this back a little bit. If they get dumped early in the SEC tournament, they're not going to not make the NCAA basketball tournament if they're Florida. There's just not that many quality teams in that 40 to 50 or that 30 to 45 range in terms of strength when it comes to the Power 5 conferences. There just aren't. I think if Florida is able to win 2, if they can make it to the SEC semifinals, look, if they can make it to the SEC semifinals, then they're probably looking at a 7 or an 8 seed. What does that mean? This is where it gets interesting. Florida going to be punished or rewarded based on their season. Are they going to end up as an 8 or a 9 in the Kansas region? That's death. That's execution. That is. That's Green Mile type of stuff is what that is. If they end up as an 8 or a 9 with Dayton, or as an 8 or a 9 and get shipped out west, with the San Diego States of the world, Creighton's, it's a little bit different story. It is. It's a little bit different story because I could see the way Florida has played against Baylor, the way Florida played against the talent in Kentucky. Dayton's a good basketball team. There's no doubt about that. San Diego State's a good basketball team. There's no doubt about that. But they are going to each get a sacrificial lamb out of the gate. They are. 15, 16, they're going to get a team talent-wise that they should be able to run over. Then, if you're Florida State and you're in that 8-9 game, you are going to play a team that's got maybe not the same amount of talent that you do, but close. Then you're going to get to the second round, and you're going to be taking on a team, if you're Mike White and company, if you're an 8 or a 9 seed, as long as you get in that San Diego State, as long as you get in that Dayton area, you have a shot at that. You do. You have a shot at that. So, as many as, these non-Power 5 teams, mid-major teams that are having the success, the Gonzagas have proven it time and time again. They have. But now, because of Gonzaga's success, because of, even Dayton's success over the years, and you look back, way back to Butler's success, that, you find yourself in a position now, if you're one of these schools, if you're one of these teams, that you are now being rewarded because of what other people did. You are. And I think those are good basketball teams, but the Daytons of the world and the Gonzagas and the San Diego States, let's face it, they haven't played the Michigan States, the Kentuckys, the Marylands, the Baylors. They haven't played those type of teams. They just haven't. So you get to March and boom, here you are, you're ready. And a lot of the time the answer is no. Now you look back 15 years ago, St. John's was ready. Well, St. John's had 2 NBA, basketball players. They had 2 first-round draft picks out. A little bit different case. So I'm going to be interested to see at least juxtaposition-wise where both of these teams end up going forward as we hit tournament week. But expectation-wise when it comes to Florida, expectation-wise when it comes to Florida State, I think both in the camp of they're both going to make the tournament. Florida State, I think it's an Elite 8 run. I do. Florida, if Florida can make the Sweet 16, it's a successful season. It is. Then you get to the question going forward here, how does Mike White and how does Florida start to, and you never thought you'd say this, would you? Never thought you'd say this 3 or 4 years ago. How does Mike White, how does Florida start to close the gap on Florida State? Because there's been a pendulum shift. Just like there's been a pendulum shift in the state when it comes to football, because there has been, over to Florida. There's no doubt that the power in college basketball resides in Tallahassee now. It just does. How do you shift that? How do you change that? It's a great question. It is. It's a great question. Mike White's got 2 McDonald's All-Americans. How many does Leonard Hamilton have? But yet, here's Leonard Hamilton, going to be a 2 seed as long as they don't completely deuce their drawers in the ACC tournament. They win the ACC tournament, they got a great shot to be a 1 seed. They do. And then what does that do for expectations? And I was thinking about this as well, and I know that some Florida fans are a little upset about Mike White. Hey, look, where this team is and how college basketball works. The Kansas Jayhawks of the world, the Dukes of the world. Look at what happened in North Carolina, the step that Roy Williams and company took back here a little bit. You saw a little bit of a shift. Villanova's always in there in that 8 to 12 range as well, 8 to 14 range as well when it comes to the RPI, BPI, however you want to, whatever acronym you want to use to determine the strength. We just don't use polls anymore in college basketball. There are a few teams that are up there every single year. Even Duke this year, a little bit of a step back, right? Even Duke, a little bit of a step back this year. So I look at if you're Florida State, you are at the pinnacle. You are at the precipice. You are at the summit of strength with Leonard Hamilton and Florida State. You're at the peak. You are. Now, could this team win a national championship? You bet they could. They play strong enough defense and suffocating enough defense that they could, like Virginia did last year. Now, it's not the exact same type of structure of a defense, right? It's not. I mean, what Leonard Hamilton does as opposed to what Mike Bennett does, it's totally different structures, but it's the same suffocating defense. You just got to figure out a way to score some points in there. And Florida State's proven that they can do that. They have. The ACC is not as strong as it's been in seasons past. It's not. But the SEC, not as strong as it was last year. The Big Ten strong, but the Big Ten stronger on that second tier, on that second line. Look at it like this. The Big Ten is loaded. Imagine if you were a football team in college football and you had 6 guys get drafted in the second round. It's pretty good, right? That's where the Big Ten is. They're loaded in the second round. Not in the first. Loaded in the second. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out this week. What do I think is going to happen? I think Florida will win a game and then get bounced in the SEC tournament, right? I mean, the Auburns and the LSUs of the world, when they run into those teams, can they beat them? I haven't seen anything from Florida in the last few weeks that makes me say in a neutral site, yes. Haven't. Now, this Florida team, talent-wise, reminds me a lot of the team that went to the Elite Eight, that bounced Wisconsin, that lost to South Carolina in the Elite Eight, and that's just it. The definition of success in college basketball is so much different than other sports. It is. You can have a good NFL season and get beat right away. You can. The Patriots, a decent year where they won 11 games this last year, got beat right away. Is it a bad year? You know, you may say from the Patriots standard, yeah, okay, that's fine. That's fine if you believe that. But I look at it like this. And then, you know, the other sports, here's another example, right? Look at how loaded the NBA is in the Western Conference. The Lakers, and then you have a bunch of teams, right? Whether it's the Clippers, the Rockets on the bottom end there. You've got 3 or 4 teams that are all sandwiched in there in that next tier. Well, when it's all said and done, what's going to separate the 2 seed from the 5 seed or the 2 seed from the 6 seed in the Western Conference in the NBA? 2 games, 3 games when it's all said and done. So what does that mean? That means somebody is going to end up sitting there as a 3 seed or the 2 seed. They're going to get the Raptors. At least with Milwaukee and Toronto, it's a different case. I'll get to that in a second. But you look at somebody that's going to be in there as a 2 or 3, you're scrambling to get up to that 2 or 3 line. Why? You want no part of that 4 or 5 seeding, and then you run into the Lakers in the second round. You don't want that. You don't want Anthony Davis and LeBron James sitting there waiting in the wings at 66-16, straight off a sweep in the first round of the NBA playoffs. So, look, the Lakers can have a successful season if what? They got to go to the Western Conference Finals. So we're kind of, Florida State's not exactly in that same boat, but Florida State's in Clipper land. Florida State's in Raptor land. They're not the Bucks, right? They're not. The Bucks, the Lakers would be the equivalent of Kansas. They would be. So, hey, look. Again, structure-wise, when it comes to Florida State, when it comes to Leonard Hamilton, when it comes to Mike White, there is no way for both of these programs to have a similarly successful season. There's not. There's no way that's just not possible. There's no way for both of them to have a similarly successful season as I butcher through that. The only way that can really happen at this point is what? The only way that both of them can have a similar successful type of year is, boy, if Florida State makes it to the Elite Eight and Florida makes it to the Elite Eight, you can look back at the beginning of the year and say, hey, Florida was a top 10 team. They ended up where they should be. You could say Florida State in the run that they ended up having where they ended up in the Elite Eight. Yeah, that's about the only way that it happens. Florida State, look, if Florida wins a tournament game and they're an 8 seed and they lose to Dayton by 3 in the second round or San Diego State by 4 in the second round, that's a successful year. If Florida gets dumped in the first round, not good, right? Not good. But, again, I went back through and looked at what Mike White has done in his first 4 or 5 years at the University of Florida and what Billy Donovan has done. Billy Donovan did go to the Final Four and did make it to the championship game before getting run out of the gym by Mateen Cleaves and Charlie Bell in Michigan State. And then, for a little while after that, Florida got bounced by Manhattan early on in the tournament, right? So Mike White doesn't have that early exit. He doesn't have that early exit on his resume. But, I look back to Florida 2 years ago, Sweet 16, loses to Texas Tech, wins a game in the tournament, gets bounced by Texas Tech. What was it last year? Wins a game, gets bounced by Michigan. Mike White makes it to the Sweet 16. That can kind of calm things down here a little bit. But fortunes can change so quickly when it comes to this. Look at South Carolina 3-4 years ago now. Goes to the Elite Eight or goes to the Final Four and still talking about it. Look at what Bruce Pearl did at Auburn last year. Still talking about it. Look at Texas Tech. Deep runs in tournaments, the consistent deep runs in tournaments, even the Kansases and the Villanovas of the world. Bill Self's had his fair share of early exits. Mike White hasn't had that yet. All been able to win at least one tournament game. Right? First year they go to the NIT. Second year go to the Elite Eight. Win a tournament game. Bounced by Texas Tech. Win a tournament game. Get bounced by Michigan. So he can win a tournament game. Is it a successful year? Yeah. It's a good year. It is. It's a good year. I don't know if it's extremely successful. Florida State. Again, I just look at both of these teams and where they are. It's going to be interesting crash course. Now, I don't think they would do it. I don't. I hope the committee does not give us Florida State in the second round. It's possible. It really, really is. Florida State ends up as a 2 seed. Florida ends up as a 7 or a 10. See, that wouldn't be fair to Florida State. In terms of Florida, hey, look, you're down there in that 7 to 11 range. you got to take what comes your way. You do. You got to take what comes your way. If Florida ends up as an 8 or a 9 and ends up in Kansas's region, hey, you know what? That's life. You get down there. I don't think there can be much griping once you get past like the 7 line when, hey, man, this is not fair that we end up with this team. No, it doesn't work that way. You get buried down that far, there's a reason why you're buried down there that far. If Florida somehow ends up as an 8 or a 9 in the same region, if Florida State would end up as a 1, or Florida ends up as a 7 or a 10 in the same region that Florida ends up as a 2, that's wrong. That's wrong. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes itself out. What do I think is going to happen when it's all said and done? I know Baylor hasn't played well, but I think Baylor's going to make it to the Big 12 title game, or they're going to lose to Kansas because Kansas is just ridiculously good right now. And your 1 seeds are going to be Kansas, Gonzaga, Baylor, and then take your pick, Dayton, San Diego State, however it works when it's all said and done. I think Florida can win a game. I don't know if they can win 2. I expect Florida to lose in the semifinals of the SEC tournament. And then at that point, they're probably staring at an 8 or a 9. Florida State, I think Florida State will win the ACC. I do. I think Florida State will win the ACC tournament. He's having a good year, man. He's having a good year, and they've added just a little twinge of offense to go with the defense. So, again, just want to do a little bracketology bliss for you. I told you I'd do a little Florida State, and just crunching the numbers. Here's the thing that is true when it comes to Florida State. And, we talk about Kentucky, and look, I'm a big fan of John Calipari. I am. I know a lot of people don't like him. I like him because, they're relevant no matter what. And that's a broadcaster's dream, and I love it as a consumer. If you're relevant no matter what, even if I look at Kentucky as an iPhone. I look at it as like an iPhone. I do. You may not like the upgrades, but it's a new iPhone. That's what John Calipari and Kentucky are. Every single year it's a new iPhone. Now, is it what we'd have if Steve Jobs were still around? Probably not, but that's what Kentucky is. Kentucky is an iPhone. Every single year. Every single year it's relevant and it's interesting. Okay, so before I hang this all up, just looking at the numbers here when it comes to Florida State and Florida, and I should say Florida State and Kentucky, when it comes to RPIs, when it comes to rankings, strength of schedule, all those things. I just think this is interesting because you look at what Florida State's done this year compared to what Kentucky's done this year, and anybody out of the SEC for that matter. The thing that's going to burn Florida State in terms of being a 1 seed is the fact that their strength of schedule is in the 40s. So it's going to burn them. When it comes to Kentucky, theirs is in the 70s. Now, Kentucky's a 3 or 4. I don't see Kentucky getting up there to that line. I'm just looking at comparisons of regular season conference winners and as we hit the tournament, because Kentucky and Florida State are going to end up with very, very similar records, but don't be confused by the two. And I told you I'm a big fan of Kentucky. Kentucky's an iPhone. Florida State, Florida State, they won the regular season in the ACC. Predictions, Florida ends up as a 9, 8, maybe. If they can make it to the SEC finals, they get up to a 7, SEC conference tournament finals. Florida State, I think they're probably a 2 as long as they make the ACC title game. And if they win it, they're going to need some help. They're going to need some help when it's all said and done. So there you go. A little bracketology bliss for you here on this Tuesday night. Just wanted to do a little preview of both of these teams and where they go and how you define success. And again, I look at Florida State a little bit like I look at, I'm going to give you some football analogies here really quick. I look at Florida State when it comes to the NFL. Florida State finds itself in a, what would be fair here? Florida State finds itself in a Houston Texans role. You make the playoffs, you win a game, you do some, you make it to the conference finals, you get into a 2 seed. Let's face it, the Texans lost to the Chiefs. They ran into a buzzsaw. They are. They did. In terms of, think about the college football playoff. If you are Florida State, in basketball, the equivalent would be, what would it be? It would be, if Florida State, I'm trying to compare and contrast teams in the seasons ahead. Okay, Florida State in college basketball is what Oregon was in college football this year. I knew we'd get there. I knew we'd eventually get there as I stuttered and stammered through that. So, yeah, again, Florida, Sweet 16, it's a successful run. It is a successful run. Florida State, I think it's got to be Elite Eight. Got to be Elite Eight for you to consider either of those successful seasons. But if Florida State can make it to the Final Four, they're peaking right now. Then after you get to reevaluate, how does Mike White, and it's not a blessing in disguise, but with all the talent that Florida had and all that Mike White brought in, I know you have some upperclassmen in there and you have Blackshear and company. I do think that some of the young guys are going to come back. I think some of the young guys are going to come back, and you can end up being pretty salty when it's all said and done next year. You could be. Because we've seen that time and time again, like whether it's Auburn, whether it's or even the year Kentucky, John Calipari recruited all those studs. Was about 5 6 years ago now? Geez, 6 years ago now. It's hard to believe, right? Where everybody came out, all 5 freshmen decided not to come out. They came back, and then he added another strong core, and that's how they got undefeated and got to the Final Four before they got done by Wisconsin. So there you go, gang. Again, success, definition of success. Florida State, what is it? Trip to the Elite Eight. Florida, what is it? Hey, I think it's Sweet 16, a successful season. And it's possible that they could end up playing each other in the second round. And if they end up playing each other in the second round, that's wrong. It's just wrong. It's not fair to Florida State. So there you go. Again, Harp on Sports, The Bar, live here on this Tuesday night. Again, any ideas, topics, things you want to throw our way, guests that you think we should bring on? I've ordered the equipment. I'm able to do phone calls and do interviews coming up here now when it comes to this. So expect some interviews. I know some people that I want to bring on here. What's my plan to be back on the radio again? It's coming. It's coming. I will be back on the radio hosting a show within the next, I want to make sure 4 weeks. I can give you that time frame. It'll be sooner than that, but I'll be back on the air on a regular basis in 4 weeks. The question is where. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate being a part of it again. You can check this out via audio as well, video, YouTube, the Harp on Sports, Seth Harp YouTube channel. Of course, Facebook Live, Twitter Live. Also, the Harp on Sports podcast. You can check out all of those things at harponsports.com. Thank you for being a part of this here on this Tuesday night. Again, I'll be back Thursday. If anybody has anything they'd like me to tackle, I'm going to look at heading into the weekend a little bit more of a potpourri. I know there's going to be NCAA tournament, all sorts of things going on. I did the Jaguars with Dave Wydell on Friday. I wanted to do Florida State last night, Monday night. I guess that was last night. Wasn't able to get to it because of got back late from Disney. So there you go. Anything that you think you'd like to hear on, feel free to fire off in the comment section. You can also hit me up at harponsports.com. Enjoy your Tuesday night, everybody. Oh, also, I have something. Not going to share it with you. Not yet. That'll be the next podcast. It has to do with the city. It has to do with Lot J. It has to do with the Jaguars. And it has to do with something how we have failed. We like to scold national pundits, or at least national writers, national publications about, the draft's not here and that's wrong. And Tony Baselli's not in the Hall of Fame. What are you going to do for yourself? What do we do as a city besides grandstand when it comes to the powers that be? We'll discuss that in the next podcast, one of the things. But if you have any ideas, suggestions, go ahead and fire them off. harponsports.com. Enjoy your Tuesday night, everybody. We appreciate it. This has been Harp on Sports, The Bar, Harp on Sports Audio and Media Network. Enjoy your evening, everybody.